So, oftentimes Sonic is pitted against Mario for obvious reasons. Mario is Nintendo's mascot, and Sonic is Sega's. And even after the whole thing cooled down, there are still games like the Olympic series that still push this rivalry. But I never really see Sonic being put against Link. He always just seems to be this neutral party zone. And you might be thinking that that's for good reason, but actually there are some decent similarities between these two series. Not really in terms of character personality or story, but in terms of game phases. So without further ado, here's Link vs Sonic, and who did it better. Let's get into it. So this is how this is going to work. There's going to be a total of 10 different categories or phases that both these franchises can have applied to them. Games from both sides will be mentioned that apply to each individual category, and a little bit of history might also be mentioned here or there about them, before I finally decide to list the pros and cons of each. And whichever I find has the more pros will be the victor of that round, and get a point. Now, initially this is going to be one big video, but I figured that I'd really take my time with this instead and be thorough, and produce better videos for you guys by breaking it up. So for today, I'm just going to be talking about one category, which is probably our biggest and most ongoing game phase, character design. Both Sonic and Link have undergone many different designs and tweaks throughout their games, some which are very easily comparable and some which aren't. So here are all the different designs for Link. And then here are all the different designs for Sonic. So to make this a little easier to compare, I'm just going to further group these guys to compare them directly to each other. And to start off, we have all of the 2D pixelated versions of these characters. Link has a lot more of these versions. From Legend of Zelda to The Adventure of Link and A Link to the Past, all these early versions of Link probably went through the most changes. For instance, many of Link's old 2D designs are made to make him look cute, but aren't all that detailed. The best example of this was with the original Legend of Zelda, as well as the later Oracles of Ages/Seasons Link. Surprisingly though, between these two games are other designs that, in my opinion, are arguably better, with Link's Adventure and Link's Awakening. There's more detail, and while A Link to the Past Link keeps his cuteness, this is where we started to make the shift from brunette to blonde for our Hylian hero. Meanwhile, in Link's Adventure, Link, he looks more like the adult 3D version of Link we'll talk about later. Also, side note, the creators of Link decided to roll with the Peter Pan influence after giving this guy pointy ears and a long green hat. That's why his tunic is green as well. Just thought you should know. And for all these pixelated versions of Link, there are very few competitors from the Sonic side of things. He only has roughly 3. There are more, but I decided to include those in a separate category for spin-offs, so I'll just leave those for later. Sonic the Hedgehog, of course, was the first design of Sonic on screen, and Sonic Mania the most recent, I believe. All of them, unlike Link, are very similar, with just a few minor adjustments, but still enough that people have ranked them separately. Now, if I'm being brutally honest, the original version of Link isn't a contestant here for me. I'm sure it's nostalgic and the game might be great, but the actual design is really small and doesn't have a lot of room for the designers to make an interesting character. Meanwhile, Sonic's debut right out of the gate was rather detailed and interesting, really more on the same level as Link to the Past than anything else. And unfortunately, as adorable as he is, I'm gonna boot out Oracle of Ages Link as well. Once again, his design is small and cramped and not as much as the original, but compared to the original Sonic it is. And also, I think I'm gonna give the win to Sonic, just because in general, while there are so many great Sonic games now, I'm still willing to play the old Sonic games too. However, with the older Link games, both original Link and Link's Adventure Link aren't what Link is considered to look like now because of his blonde hair. And while the other pixelated ones are really well done, I just think that Link's design is so much more outstanding now that his 2D design is just meh. Also, I am a little biased because I have actually played the original Sonic games and not the original Link games, so there's also that. But still, there's a lot of categories here, and I think Link can still win this thing. So, point for Sonic. Next, we have the more cartoonish type of these characters, though I use that term loosely for both parties. Link has a lot of these cute top-down view games where it's not the grand spectrum of something like Breath of the Wild, but also isn't a pixelated 2D game, like the remake of Link's Awakening and A Link Between Worlds. Also, there are games like Wind Waker, where he's totally 3D and in this cartoonish form. Meanwhile, for Sonic, you have this classic redesign of him that has just a lot of renditions between Sonic 3D Blast, to Sonic Generations, Sonic Superstars, and now most recently Sonic X Shadow Generations. Now, the early stages of Sonic's classic 3D revamp are janky. He doesn't have the green eyes, his limbs are very sectioned. However, the more recent versions are really just on par with the Wind Waker and Link's Awakening's version of Link. So honestly, I had a hard time picking the winner for this one just because both sides are really good. But I decided to give it to Link because I just don't care for this version of Sonic at all. I don't really care for the Wind Waker design either, but A Link Between Worlds and the remake of Link's Awakening are absolutely adorable. And I really want to try and play these games simply just because of how Link looks. So now we're tied with a point each. Moving on again, I'm gonna leave the main 3D models of both the characters of Link and Sonic for last, since there is the biggest amount of them, and it's probably the hardest choice. So for now, we're gonna do the questionably canon versions of these characters for our next section. For Link, we have two. One of them from the games of Wanda and Faces of Evil, as well as a creepypasta character based off of Majora's Mask, who's called Ben Drowned. And then for Sonic, there's Sonic EXE, and honestly, I don't know who else I'd put for a rival against Chameleon Link, maybe someone like Sonic Omens or something. In any case, Wanda Link is just straight garbage in my opinion. The games are kinda silly, and while the actual visibility of the character is good, no. No, I'm not letting that be a decent contender. However, pitting Sonic EXE and Ben Drowned against each other, I think I'm actually more inclined to say that Ben Drowned is better. I think it definitely does a better job at scaring you with his appearance. Also, in general, the fan art and backstory seems cooler to me. Meanwhile, Sonic EXE is just a demon version of Sonic. So, in this category, I'm gonna give another point to Link, simply for Ben Drowned. And now I'm gonna try and get into the spin-off versions of Link and Sonic, which again is a tough choice, because even though I'd say that a lot more of Sonic spin-offs games are decent, and that the actual character design are good, there's also just Hyrule Warriors and Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity that are both just outstanding in terms of character design. I mean, I kid you not, this is my favorite version of Link in the entire franchise, hands down. You cannot change my mind. I don't care if this game is on the Wii U or not canon, I love it. Just for the character design. But also, I have to stop and consider just all the other different Sonic games, and therefore all the different Sonic designs. Starting back with games like Sonic R, all the way up to games like Sonic and the Black Knight and such things like that. I mean, I like Sonic and the Black Knight. And The Secret of the Ring seems interesting too. And while the games of the Sonic Boom era were not that great, I actually like the Sonic Boom design. Yeah, I know, most people hate it. Sue me, I think it's cool. And then going back to the other two games, the little flame on Sonic's chest plus the ring are interesting. And then for Black Knight, Sonic wielding a sword is pretty awesome. So all that gives Sonic a few pluses. And on top of that, there's also the dozens of Sonic racing games that just overall top the amount of spin-offs over Link. But I love the Hyrule Warriors design so much. I can't help it. And I really wouldn't die on a hill defending any of these Sonic designs, in all honesty. For the most part, aside from Sonic Boom, he really doesn't get changed throughout his games so much, just really given some accessories. And again, not hating on Sonic, I started playing his games much earlier than Zelda, but I still like the Hyrule Warriors design a lot. However, because I like Sonic so much as well, I'll give him a half point, while Link gets a full point. Hopefully that makes things fair enough. Next, we have our special versions of Link and Sonic, some of which aren't technically them. For instance, Dark Link is a shadow version of Link, but it isn't Link turned evil or anything. This is just the opposite evil version of Link who is malevolent and cruel, which I might add, Sonic doesn't have anything like that, at least from what I can think of. There is that one Sonic EXE episode where Sonic turned evil for a bit, and you also have Metal Sonic, which is a robot version of Sonic. Honestly, the only other character though that I could think of that kind of applied to Dark Link was Mephiles from Sonic 06. But again, that isn't Sonic turned evil, and that isn't even Sonic's evil twin. That's a whole other character entirely. And of course, in addition to all these dark characters that I'm mentioning, you also have special powered versions of both Link and Sonic. Like all the variations of Link that he turns into using the masks within Majora's Mask. Fierce Deity is my favorite, by the way. It just looks ridiculously cool. And then for Sonic, you have forms like his Super Form, Dark Spine Form, Werehog Form, and Excalibur Form. All of which, I gotta hand it to Sega, are really, really different. For once, you can easily distinguish all the different versions of Sonic without squinting your eyes or by memorizing from what game each specific version of him is from. So, with these two aspects in mind, I'd say that in general, Link wins the dark aspect form of things, because Dark Link has come back in multiple games, and has a whole creepypasta following. Plus, he has a Hyrule Warriors design, which, like I said, I'm a total fan of. But on the other hand, Fierce Deity look aside, Sonic's different designs are very, very different, and not based off of anything. I don't know, I mean, the way they turned Link into different species during Majora's Mask are very, very interesting. But they aren't totally new designs, just ones based off of existing characters and made to look a little bit more like Link. So I mean, I also want to give a point to Sonic, but also there is the deity form of Link, and it's my second favorite design in the whole series, so Link is gonna come out on top with an extra 1.5 points. Meanwhile, I'm also gonna give a point to Sonic. Yeah, this was another really, really hard category. And just before I go into the final section of this video, I just wanted to briefly touch on the designs of these characters through TV shows. And I mean, I'd be surprised if anyone disagrees with me here. Sonic gets a point, just off the bat. He just has more shows in general, and they're all just better, really. They mostly keep Sonic's character design intact, while the one single Zelda show, Link is clearly a brunette instead of a blonde. Also, his character is just annoying, meanwhile, Sonic X in particular just is awesome. That show alone blows away the competition, and I haven't even touched on the humor of Sonic Boom. So, yeah, easy point for Sonic here. And now lastly, we have the main version of Link and the main version of Sonic. Oh boy, there are just so many versions of this. Some which are great, and some of which are less so. And again, something to point out about Sonic is that he doesn't change much from this point on, especially since he doesn't have any clothes. Clothes are the main thing that make characters different usually when created in some sort of animated show or movie series. And as you can see, my point is being proven by that with the different variations of Link between Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, and Ocarina of Time. Because while his actual character doesn't really change, his clothing does. The only thing that I can say in terms of Sonic getting changed around is that his 3D version in Sonic 06 had a bit of a weird thing happen to it, where they made him more human-like than in other games. But even still, I don't think that's enough to change things, and I don't think that anything has made Link or Sonic better if you're really just looking at the characters and designs themselves. It's really just up to the fact of, are you more interested in a blue humanoid hedgehog or a elf-like warrior guy? So in the end, I'm gonna give both of these guys a point, since they just, well, they really are the looks that I think of when I think of Link or Sonic. So yeah, point for both of them. And there we have it. Yikes, that was a lot of decision making, and a lot of character designs to try and fit into one video. But in the end, we see that just barely Link comes out on top by a half a point. Wow. I was honestly worried that one of these characters would just really pull ahead, but no. Seems like they didn't. Anyway, what do you think of my decisions on this? Do you think Link's character designs over the years are better, or Sonic's? Leave me your answers in the comments. And be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!